Hello and welcome to Spectrum. My name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Bola Tinubu commiserates with India over deadly train crash. PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar joins in criticism of abrupt removal of fuel subsidy. Plus, Erdogan sworn in for third term as Turkish president vows unity. The details of these stories and more in a moment. First in the news, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has sent a message of commiseration to the government and people of the Republic of India over a multiple train crash in the country, which reportedly killed over 280 passengers. The fatal crash involving two passenger trains and a goods train in the Indian city of Balasore in the eastern state of Odisha occurred on Friday. Aside those killed, over 900 others were said to have been injured in what was one of the worst rail crashes in recent history. Tinubu, in a statement by his media aide Abdulaziz, described the train accident as heart-rending, while consoling the Indian government and families of the victims. The statement further noted that the president sent his deepest sympathy and condolences to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the people of India and the families of those trapped in the crash. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu will tomorrow meet lawmakers-elect of the National Assembly from opposition parties as the National Assembly leadership tussle intensifies. Opposition senators-elect and House of Representatives members-elect from the People's Democratic Party, Labour Party, and the New Nigeria People's Party, among other opposition parties, are expected to meet with President Tinubu at the State House in Abuja between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. The president's notice of invitation to the lawmakers-elect, which was obtained by media, was signed by the Permanent Secretary, State House Tijani Umar, on behalf of the Chief of Staff to the President Femi Gbajabiamila, while the opposition senators-elect will meet with Tinubu by 3 p.m. Opposition House of Representatives members-elect will gather at the same venue to discuss with the president by 5 p.m. Though the notice of invitation did not state the agenda of the meeting, it was gathered that the leadership of the 10th National Assembly would be discussed. Away from that, former President Muhammadu Buhari has submitted his assets declaration form with the Code of Conduct Bureau (CCB) yesterday, acknowledging receipt of the form. The senior special advisor to the former president on media and publicity, Garba Shehu, made this known via a Twitter post as he shared a photo of the acknowledgement slip from the CCB, where he revealed that Buhari had taken no loan and had no liabilities. The acknowledgement slip was signed by the chairman of the CCB, Isa Muhammad. It was earlier reported that Buhari on May 26 received copies of his assets declaration form at the State House Abuja before he handed over power to President Bola Tinubu on May 29. The CCB had noted that all outgoing and newly elected public officials had until May 29 to submit their assets declaration forms, after which verification of the assets would commence. Shehu noted that in the completed declaration, Buhari's movable assets home and abroad did not increase, but there was a little reduction in the number of the former president's animals. He also noted that Buhari maintained his only bank account with Union Bank. Away from that, the federal government says stricter measures will be put in place to ensure that underage candidates are denied admission into unity schools. The Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Education Andrew Adejo, made this known in Abuja on Saturday while monitoring the 2023 Common Entrance Examinations into Unity schools. The examination was organized by the National Examination Council, and a total of 72,821 candidates sat for the examination nationwide. Adejo advised parents to stop allowing underage children to write the Common Entrance Examination, stating that she saw children that she knows are not up to 10, and 3 of them accepted that they are 9 years old. She noted that this amounts to teaching the children the wrong values, as education is not about passing exams, but teaching, learning, and character formation. The Permanent Secretary also noted that the efforts of the federal government and other stakeholders in encouraging girls' education are yielding fruits, saying the number of girls that registered for the Common Entrance Examination this year is 38,000, far above the previous years. The Registrar of NECO, Professor Dantani Wushishi, said the conduct of the examination was generally smooth and orderly, adding that from the reports received from across the country, the examination went on hitch-free, also confirming that 72,821 candidates registered for the 2023 National Common Entrance Examination. Wushishi disclosed that Lagos State had the highest enrollment, followed by FCT, while the state with the lowest registration, Kebbi, has about 115 registered candidates. He noted that the council would put in place mechanisms to check some of the noticeable gaps caused by an upsurge in registration a day before the examination. In a separate development, the Trade Union Congress TUC has urged the federal government to revert to status quo over its decision to remove fuel subsidy. Festus Osifo, TUC president, spoke while addressing newsmen at the end of an emergency meeting of the Congress's National Executive Council NEC meeting held on Friday in Abuja. According to Osifo, the TUC is unhappy with the unilateral decision of the federal government to remove the subsidy. He said the TUC's expectation was that the government should have engaged organized labor. According to Osifo, it is how the government reacts to TUC's demands that will determine the union's next line of action. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Labour Congress also had its NEC meeting and has said it will embark on a nationwide strike from June 7 if the issue of fuel subsidy removal and increase in the price of fuel is not reverted. Away from that, the People's Democratic Party (PDP) presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar has also joined the wave of criticism trailing President Bola Tinubu's approach on the fuel subsidy removal. Speaking in Bauchi State while addressing PDP officials elected in the recent polls, Atiku kicked against the decision, which some have described as a knee-jerk policy action. According to him, between 1999 and 2007, the PDP government initiated the petroleum subsidy removal, and he chaired the committee. He said it achieved subsidy removal in 2 phases, but only after providing palliatives to those most affected by the subsidy removal. As a minority party in the soon-to-be inaugurated 10th National Assembly, the PDP urged newly elected lawmakers to work in unison as one family. In a later development, Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State has been elected the chairman of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) Governors Forum. Also, Governor Siminalayi Fubara of Rivers State emerged the vice chairman of the forum. Mohammed and Fubara emerged on Saturday at a retreat for elected PDP officials at the Banquet Hall Government House in Bauchi State. Mohammed replaced the Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, who was also at the one-day event on Saturday. The acting national chairman of PDP, Umar Damagum, in his opening remarks at the retreat, reiterated on the issue of the National Assembly, stressing that in order to remain relevant, the PDP must work together as one family. Meanwhile, the immediate past governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, was conspicuously absent at a one-day retreat for elected officials under the People's Democratic Party, which went on at Banquet Hall Government House in Bauchi State. Some of the dignitaries present at the retreat were governors of Adamawa, Umaru Fintiri Bayelsa, Doye Diri Bauchi Bala Muhammad, Delta Sharif Oborevori, Oshun Adamola Deleke Oyo Sheyi Makinde, Rivers Siminalayi Fubara, Plateau Caleb Mutwang, Taraba Abu Kefas, Akwa Ibom Umoeno. However, Wike, who led 4 governors, Makinde of Oyo, Ifanyi Ugwanyi of Enugu, Samuel Otom of Benue, and Ikpazu of Abia to form the G5 governors, was clearly not in attendance at the meeting, and he did not send representatives to stand in for him at the parley. Wike, though, has denied leaving the PDP for the APC, as he has insisted that he is still in the opposition party. Meanwhile, the acting national chairman of the party, Damagum, explained that the idea behind inviting members of the minority opposition party is to form a formidable and united force as it concerns the National Assembly leadership. In Kano, the governor Abba Kabir Yusuf in the early hours of Saturday commenced the demolition of buildings on public lands, which he termed illegal. Already a 3-story building with 90 shops on a race course by Filing Sukua Nasarawa GRA was brought down around 2 a.m. on Saturday, becoming the first victim of the demolition campaign. Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf, an engineer by profession, to show his commitment to the demolition exercise, led the removal of the illegal building, accompanied by the State Commissioner of Police, Mohammed Gomel. It could be recalled that Abba Kabir Yusuf, shortly after being declared governor-elect, threatened to demolish buildings in the state on public property. This is the first demolition carried out after assuming office on Monday, May 29. Also on Friday, the governor directed the developer carrying out construction works at the Hajj camp to stop ongoing construction. All those who erected buildings on government lands or illegally acquired plots of land from the government are said to be jittery about the consequences of their actions. Away from that, the convoy of the executive governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, was reportedly blocked and attacked by some hoodlums suspected to be political thugs. A statement issued on Saturday by the State Commissioner for Information, Kingsley Fangwo, blamed people believed to be supporters of Al-Haji Moritala Yakubu Ajaka for the attack at about 12:30 on Saturday. According to the commissioner, the attack took place near the naval base a few kilometers from Lokoja. Although some security aides and other aides attached to the governor were said to have sustained some degrees of injuries and have been rushed to medical facilities for medical attention, the commissioner urged the people of Kogi State to remain calm, as security agents are in full control to ensure the arrest of the hoodlums behind the attack, adding that the state government will ensure that law and order are maintained, as the attackers will be brought to justice. The board and management of the Nigerian Railway Corporation (NRC) have recommended 2 additional train trips on the Abuja-Kaduna train service. The NRC management, in a statement, explained that the train service will resume today, Sunday, 4th June. The NRC assured its passengers of their safety with the implementation of certain measures such as social distancing and regular sanitation, while apologizing to its esteemed passengers for any inconvenience they might have experienced as a result of the temporary reduction in train service. Away from that, the Enugu state government has called on residents of the state to ignore the seat-at-home being enforced by some members of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra IPOB in parts of the southeast and go about their lawful businesses. The government directed all schools, markets, banks, retail outlets, hospitals, transporters, and malls to operate every day of the week, including Mondays. It warned that defaulters of the directive may be forced to shut down with immediate effect, stressing that the state's task force would be moving around to check compliance. According to a statement issued on Saturday by the state government, the call followed a recent ban and cancellation of the seat-at-home in the state. Away from that, the Lagos State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal has adjourned till final judgment its ruling on an application filed by the Governor of Lagos State and his deputy challenging the entire petition filed by Badebo Rhodes Viva, the Labour Party's candidate, in the March 18 election. The three-member tribunal led by Justice Arum Ashom also adjourned till final judgment a similar application filed by the Independent National Electoral Commission seeking to strike out the petition at this preliminary stage for being incompetent. At the proceedings of the panel on Saturday, Senior Advocate of Nigeria Wole Olanipekun argued the application challenging Rhodes Viva's entire petition on behalf of his clients, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and his deputy, Kadiri Obafemi Hamzat. The application was brought pursuant to Section 36, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, paragraphs 18, subsection 7D, and 47, subsection 1 of the first schedule to the Electoral Act 2022, Order 25, Rule 1 of the Federal High Court Civil Procedure Rules 2019, and paragraph 5B of the Election Judicial Proceedings Practice Directions 2022, as well as under the inherent jurisdiction of the tribunal. It seeks an order of the Honorable Tribunal striking out and/or dismissing the petition for being incompetent, fundamentally defective, and vesting no jurisdiction on the tribunal to adjudicate on it. Back here, Akwa Ibom State Governor Pastor Moino says he would continue to meet with critical stakeholders in the state with a view to getting their informed inputs in the administration of the state. Governor Eno, who stated this shortly after a meeting with a former governor of the state, Obong Victor Atta, at his residence in Uyo, said his visit to the former governor shows the respect he has for the office of the governor, which he now occupies. The governor noted that the visit was also to appreciate the support from strategic stakeholders, especially past leaders during the electioneering period, and share ideas that would further build on his vision for the state. Also speaking, Obong Victor Atta applauded Governor Eno for his leadership acumen, adding that his approach should be encouraged. Government House correspondent Jane Owa reports that the governor was accompanied on the visit by the Deputy Governor Senator Akune Yaginyi, Secretary to the State Government Prince Enobong Owa, and other political stalwarts in the state. Meanwhile, Akwa Ibom State Governor Pastor Moino has hinted that the vision and blueprint of his administration will be interpreted by persons of proven integrity, dint of hard work and capacity to translate the vision of government in the best interest of the state. To this end, he emphasized that his appointment of State Executive Council members and personal aides will cut across people who are experienced in governance and had gone with him to the trenches, having worked for the emergence of his administration. Governor Umoino bared his mind while addressing worshippers at his maiden Government House Covenant service anchored on the theme, The God of New Beginnings, held at the Banquet Hall, Government House, Uyo. The governor, who assured on rewarding hard work, selflessness, dedication, and loyalty in his administration, hinted that his appointment of commissioners and aides will reflect a blend of experience to enable the appointees catch up with the pace of the new administration and move the state forward, stressing that there is no room for mediocre. Reflecting on the mercies of God throughout the electioneering campaign, the governor particularly thanked God for keeping the state and appreciated the fathers in faith for their prayers, assuring that God will lead the state to a great height, as the theme of the service states, the God of New Beginnings. In his homily, Primate Emmanuel Odofia of the African Church, who spoke on the theme, the God of New Beginnings, admonished that a man who connects with God will receive grace that will sustain him throughout his endeavor. In a related development, Akwa Ibom State Governor Pastor Moino has advocated consistent government media engagements for effective assimilation of government's programs. Governor Umoino made the advocacy while on a facility tour of offices within the Government House Press Center. The governor, who was accompanied by his deputy Dr. Akune Yaginyi and Secretary to the State Government Prince Enobong was received by his Chief Press Secretary Ekerete Odo and his Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity Anietie Usen. Governor Moyno, who took time to inspect the offices and facilities within the press center, made a case for a befitting press center that would encourage regular media interactions. He stressed that it was important for government programs and activities to get the publicity that they deserve. He therefore directed the Secretary to the State Government, Prince Enobong Uwa, to liaise with the Chief Press Secretary towards providing adequate office accommodation for aides and accredited members of the press corps, while ensuring that those whose duties are not media-related are relocated. Earlier, the governor presented his Arise Economic Blueprint to his deputy, Dr. Akone Yaganyi, and Secretary to the State Government, Prince Enobong Uwa, at Government House, Uyo. Still to come in the news. AFDB approves $20 million equity investment to boost infrastructure. Do stay with us.
Spectrum. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian.
From issues on politics,
Hello, Nigerians. I remain committed.
Security,
education, health,
lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken
every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Many thanks for staying tuned. Now in Africa, tensions remained high in Senegal on Saturday after fresh overnight clashes brought the death toll to 15 in the 2 days since a court-convicted opposition leader Ousmane Sonko. Sonko's ongoing legal woes have prompted rare flare-ups of violence in Senegal, typically a bastion of stability in West Africa, and foreign allies have urged a return to calm. Sonko, a 48-year-old former tax inspector, was initially charged with rape, but was convicted on a lesser charge of morally corrupting a young woman and sentenced to 2 years in prison. He claims the charges against him were a bid by the government to torpedo his political career ahead of the presidential election next year. His conviction may take him out of the running for the 2024 poll. And clashes between Sonko's supporters and police broke out after the ruling on Thursday, leaving 9 people dead, with shops and businesses ransacked. The army was deployed to the streets, but fresh scuffles erupted on Friday night in parts of the capital Dakar and in Ziguinchor. They left another 6 dead, according to government spokesman Maham Kar. Away from that, 3 Israeli soldiers have been killed by an Egyptian policeman in shootings in Israeli territory near the border with Egypt. Israel's military says an investigation with the Egyptian army has been launched. It adds, Egypt's military said its security officer had crossed a checkpoint while chasing drug traffickers. The Israeli military has said the shootings were assumed to be connected with a drug smuggling operation it had carried out overnight. According to the army, 2 Israeli soldiers, a man and woman, posted in a remote spot along the border, were shot dead early on Saturday morning. Their bodies were discovered after a senior officer was unable to contact them. The Israeli military says hours later, after a search operation, the alleged attacker was encircled and there was a shootout. In a vaguely worded statement, the Egyptian military said that its security officer was pursuing drug smugglers and that an exchange of fire led to the Israeli deaths. Contraband worth about $400,000 was seized by Israeli forces during the overnight operation, and soldiers are continuing to search in the area for others that may have been involved. Meanwhile, a video posted online shows a sandstorm surrounding the Suez Canal, which led to authorities closing 2 ports. Parts of Egypt have been hit by clouds of dust and sand. 1 person died and 5 others were injured on Thursday when a billboard collapsed as a result of the sandstorm sweeping through Egypt's capital city, Cairo. The Suez Canal is said to be one of the busiest waterways in the world. Away from that now, police trying to identify a man found dead in the undercarriage of a plane at Gatwick Airport have released an e-fit image. The discovery was made on board a TUI flight that had traveled from the Gambia's capital Banjul on 7th December. Police are investigating the case in order to formally identify the man. Sussex Police is working in partnership with the High Commissioner for the Gambia, Interpol and HM Coroner. On the foreign scene now, Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso, who dissolved the country's National Assembly last month amid an impeachment process against him, has announced that he will not run in early elections set for August. Lasso said on Friday that he will not participate in the August 20 vote and called on various political parties to unite in defense of democracy. The right-wing former banker who took office in 2021 has been governing by decree after invoking a constitutional mechanism in mid-May to dissolve the opposition-controlled National Assembly and cut his presidency short. The move came as the legislature had been considering Lasso's impeachment over allegations he had ignored warnings of embezzlement relating to a contract with state-owned oil transportation company Flota Petrolera Equatoriana Flopec. Away from that, former Haitian Prime Minister Laurent Lamothe has been blocked from entering into the United States as part of its ongoing crackdown on corruption in the Caribbean island nation. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced the sanctions against Lamothe on Friday, citing his involvement in significant corruption. The Latin American country, home to over 11.4 million people, has been besieged by gang violence and political instability, particularly in the wake of the 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moïse. Prosecutors for the U.S. Justice Department, as well as officials in Haiti, have been pursuing accountability in Moïse's murder, and dozens of people have been detained in connection to the assassination in Haiti, while the U.S. has arrested and charged 11 suspects for their alleged roles in the planned coup d'etat. Away from that now, Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan was sworn in for a third term as president on Saturday, promising to serve impartially after winning a historic runoff election to extend his two-decade rule. Erdogan called for unity and the anger and resentment of the campaign to be set aside as he spoke during a lavish ceremony at his presidential palace in the capital Ankara, attended by dozens of world leaders. Turkey's transformative but divisive leader won the May 28 runoff against a powerful opposition coalition, despite an economic crisis and anger over the response to a February earthquake that killed more than 50,000 people. Erdogan won 52.18% of the vote, while his secular rival Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu scored 47.82%. Official results show. Supporters in parliament gave Erdogan a minute-long standing ovation after his swearing in, while some opposition lawmakers refused to stand up in his oath. Erdogan also promised not to deviate from the rule of law and the secular principles of the republic founded by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk 100 years ago. Turkey's longest-serving leader, who has survived mass protests, a corruption scandal, and a failed coup attempt since he came to power in 2003, now faces significant immediate challenges in his third term, including the slowing economy and tensions with the West. In a separate development, at least 288 people have been killed after 3 trains were involved in a horrific crash in the eastern Indian state of Odisha, as rescuers pulled all known survivors from the wreckage, according to officials. The accident on Friday in Odisha State's Balasore district, India's deadliest rail incident in nearly 20 years, also left at least 803 people injured, the Southeastern Railway had said on Saturday. Now, a coordinator told media rescue operations concluded on Saturday, and rail authorities are to start removing the wreckage to repair the track and resume train operations, according to Amitabh Sharma, a spokesperson for Indian Railways. An extensive search and rescue operation had been launched, involving hundreds of fire department personnel, police officers, and sniffer dogs. The National Disaster Response Force teams were also rushed to the site, as well as Army soldiers and Air Force helicopters. More than 200 ambulances were called to the scene of the accident, and 100 additional doctors, on top of 80 already there, were mobilized to get the wounded to hospital and care for those still at the site. Meanwhile, India's railway minister said today the cause and people responsible for the country's worst train crash in decades had been identified, pointing to an electronic signal system without giving further details. India's railway minister Ashwini Vaishnaw disclosed this to media, saying it was not appropriate to give details before a final investigation report, but that it was identified the cause of the accident and the people responsible for it. The death toll from Friday's crash near Balasore in the eastern state of Odisha was expected to climb above 288. Ashwini said the accident happened due to the change that occurred during electronic interlocking, a technical term referring to a complex signal system designed to stop trains colliding by arranging their movement on the tracks. He said whoever did it and how it happened will be found out after proper investigation. There was confusion about the exact sequence of events, but reports cited railway officials as saying that a signaling error had sent the Coromandel Express running south from Kolkata to Chennai onto a side track. It slammed into a freight train, and the wreckage derailed an express running north from India's tech hub Bengaluru to Kolkata that was also passing the site. Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said people found guilty over a deadly rail accident in eastern India will be punished stringently. At least 288 people were killed and more than 800 injured in Friday's incident in Odisha state involving 2 passenger trains and a goods train. The rescue efforts have concluded, with officials saying all trapped and injured passengers have been retrieved. Modi has visited the scene, labeling the incident a painful one. He also met victims of the disaster in hospital and vowed that his government would leave no stone unturned for the treatment of those injured. It is still not clear what caused the multi-train collision in Balasore district, which has been described as India's worst rail accident this century. Elsewhere, President Joe Biden has said raising the U.S. borrowing limit averted economic collapse in his first Oval Office address to the nation. He pledged to sign the bill into law on Saturday after it cruised through Congress with bipartisan support. The Democratic president voiced rare praise for his Republican counterparts, saying they operated in good faith. He said a U.S. default on its $31.4 trillion debt by Monday's deadline would have been catastrophic. Speeches to the nation from the Oval Office are typically reserved for major crises such as war or natural disasters. The White House said Biden's decision to make his remarks there underscored the gravity of the situation if the debt ceiling had not been raised at the last minute. For weeks, the White House and Republicans debated details of the deal, and there was skepticism about whether the package would actually be finalized before the U.S. government ran out of money on 5th June. The bill passed 63-36 in the Senate on Thursday night, a day after it easily cleared the House of Representatives. The president praised congressional leaders, including Republican Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy and Republican Senate Leader Mitch McConnell. Separately, a school district in the U.S. state of Utah has removed the Bible from elementary and middle schools for containing vulgarity and violence. The move follows a complaint from a parent that the King James Bible has material unsuitable for children. Utah's Republican government passed a law in 2022 banning pornographic or indecent books from schools. Most of the books that have been banned so far pertain to topics such as sexual orientation and identity. The banning of the Bible comes amid a larger effort by U.S. conservatives in states to ban teachings on controversial topics such as LGBT rights and racial identity. Bans on certain books deemed offensive are also in place in Texas, Florida, Missouri, and South Carolina. Some liberal states have also banned books in some schools and libraries, citing perceived racially offensive content. The Utah decision was made this week by the Davis School District north of Salt Lake City after a complaint filed in December 2022. Officials say they have already removed the 7 or 8 copies of the Bible they had on their shelves, noting that the text was never part of students' curriculum. The committee did not elaborate on its reasoning or which passages contained the alleged vulgarity or violence. According to media, the parent who complained said the King James Bible has no serious values for minors, alleging that it is pornographic by its new definition, referring to the 2022 book ban law. Elsewhere, donor countries have provided just $107 million in new funds for the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, falling significantly short of the $300 million it needs to continue helping millions of people in Israeli-occupied territories and refugee camps in neighboring countries. Felipe Lazzarini, Commissioner General of the agency, known as UNRWA, said he was grateful for the new pledges, but they are below the amount required to keep more than 700 schools and 140 clinics open from September through December.